RWBY, Volume 6, Episode 4, so that's how it is. What happens? Yang starts out the episode by panicking and yelling at Ozpin. When Oz admits to not having a plan, Crow punches him and throws a pity party for himself being lonely. Oz hides away and the group continue to yell before Maria prompts them to get going. Meanwhile, Hazel and the teens have returned to Salem's castle and are creepily greeted by Tyrion at the door. Salem has Hazel go over the events at Haven, even though Leo had told her everything already through her seer. She then gets very upset when Hazel doesn't give her the answer she wants and gets Emerald to put the blame on Cinder for some reason. Salem reveals Cinder's still alive and Hazel tells her that Ozpin had been with the heroes. Salem gets upset again and her council flees as she breaks her windows. Back in the snow, the heroes find an abandoned farm as the episode ends.
Salem can't be killed.
Yeah, but she can be defeated if she learns the importance of life and death. But no, since they can't punch her until she stops moving, everyone starts to think it's hopeless. If murder is the only way your heroes can think of winning, I'd hate to see them play a game of chess. Are we supposed to be siding with Yang here? Look at Oz! He's small and on the floor. We're looking down at him. The framing of this makes him seem pitiable and weak. Meanwhile, big, angry Yang is yelling at him as he cries. The cinematography is doing everything it can to get you to side with Ozpin, but it seems the script didn't get the memo. The girls are speaking like we should all hate Oz now, but nothing has happened to make me feel that way. Of course he doesn't have a plan. His mission isn't to defeat Salem. It's to collect the relics and eventually begin humanity's Judgment Day. By all means, defeating Salem should be Team RWBY's mission. Coming up with a plan for that should be their responsibility, while Oz handles the quest the God of Light gave him. But instead, they just put that on Ozpin for no real reason. Heaven forbid you actually have your protagonists be proactive in their story for once. You'd think for being a company that makes comedy shows and action anime, they'd be able to do a punch right. This wallop Crow gives Ozpin is stupid. The doofy action lines in Ozpin's wacky face makes this look like it should be a joke. This is Slapstick 101. Physical comedy is relayed as comedic by being over-exaggerated. Anime girl gets mad and punches Protag-kun, and it sends him flying across the sky. We know not to see this attack as physical abuse because the absurdity of it tells us it's not to be taken seriously. In comparison, a punch delivered realistically with real physics and weight to it conveys the severity of actually getting hit. RWBY's even done this properly before. Yang punches Junior in her trailer. He goes flying and we see him with a silly face and hearts and shit circle his head. This punch is meant to be fun and funny as we follow Yang's jocular personality throughout the fight. Likewise, when Adam hits Blake in Volume 3, there's no wacky physics to be seen here. The realistic way Blake reacts and falls over shows that this was a blow to be taken seriously. It looked real, so we treat it like a real hit. But it's like Roosterteeth lost a few brain cells recently because they cannot get this right anymore. Blake hits Sun in a way that emphasizes how hurt he is, while also displaying totally believable physics and movement from the two. And we're told that was supposed to be a joke? Here we linger on Crow's exaggerated punch long enough to see Ozpin's face stretch out in a goofy way before he flies into a tree. And we're supposed to take that seriously? If you can't figure out the difference between a piece of slapstick and a real hit, don't make an action anime where people hit each other for comedy. What's the matter, Crow? Not enough people paying attention to you?
I thought I was finally doing some good. But you are. Meeting you was the worst luck of my life.
Why? Ozpin's right. By helping, he was doing good. Even though the end goal of we have to get humanity judged so we can have a confirmed religion and magic back is pretty dumb, the objective of unite humanity is a noble one. And on top of all that, why does the group hate Ozpin now? 'Cause he hid a lot from them? Does Yang and the others expect people to just spill their whole life story to them upon first encounter? Rewatching his past made him cry. Clearly that was all hard for him. And by the way, he was never shown to be malicious or heinous or bad at all throughout it. Why has the cast decided to get upset at Ozpin over falling in love and then getting murdered a lot? Shouldn't they all be cursing the gods for giving Salem immortality? Shouldn't they be ranting about Salem's actions? The thing that they seem to really focus on is that Ozpin had asked Jin how to destroy Salem and learned you can't. Why is that such a big deal? Is it because he knew that already? Because it's not like Oz had been pushing the kids to go out there and really try to kill Salem. Just stab her a bit, I'm sure she'll die. No, ultimately what's happened is the group got pissy that there's not an easy solution to the problem, and decided to villainize the man who's been most affected by that. Why does no one care that Crow attacked a child? Oscar is a victim to his punch against Oz. Are we not gonna bring that up? It's like the cast, with perhaps the exception of RWBY, just sees Oscar like he's not really a person, but instead like a vessel to hold Ozpin. That's fucked up. It's hard to root for these kids when they seem to see Oscar as wholly disposable. This moment feels like the group was supposed to start a bit of an uproar, talking over each other as they all panic, but instead they just have 3 people say one sentence each after waiting for each other to finish. The directors kinda just pretend the girls had started to get worked up enough to prompt Maria to quiet them down, but even then they can't even have Maria interrupt Yang's little growl to do so. There's not even any music in the background, emphasizing how quiet this moment really is. This is just not done well.
I hate this. I want it to stop.
He just left us?
What are we gonna do now?
Enough!
I hate this. I want it to
He
stop.
just left
What are we
us?
gonna do now?
Enough!
Maria being the one to prompt the girls to start moving is nice. We still don't know anything about this character and have no reason to care about her outside of she looks unique and is in the opening, but this tells us she's level-headed and has some experience with traveling, at least enough to know that paths usually lead somewhere.
I'm just going to be another one of his lives, aren't I?
I sure am glad we're putting so much emphasis on how hard all this has been for Oscar. I hope we get to see the conclusion to all this introspection on screen. How did Hazel and company get an airship? And who's piloting it? What a shame. Tyrion was really interesting in Volume 4. While his introduction was nothing special, once he had the screen time to spread his wings, he showed a fun amount of depth. He was religiously devoted to Salem and a competent assassin with a penchant for the overdramatic. Clearly a little unhinged, but still eloquent and fully in control. And now he's just DeviantArt crazy. Tyrion chews up the scenery so much here, I'm surprised the castle's still standing. It's as if the writers forgot everything they had the character do previously, except for laugh and stab a Beowulf, and just made his whole character that. And to top it all off, this whole scene is completely useless. This is all recapping shit we already know. We know the group thinks Cinder's dead, we know Emerald's got a crush on her. The only new information is that Tyrion's trying so hard to be creepy that he's warped into a crazy caricature of himself. Cut the scene out, and you lose nothing. So did they have to wait for Tyrion to stop laughing outside before they started?
I would like you to explain to me how it is you failed so spectacularly.
She should already know how. Leo told her before she killed him, remember? I realized the point of that scene was to try to be as edgy as possible, but you did actually have Leo say important shit during it as well. I gotta take a moment to mention how fucking slow Salem's dialogue is. This isn't scary or tense, I'm just bored as Jen Taylor meanders her way through her lines in an attempt to be intimidating. I'm assuming the only reason they didn't tell her to pick up the pace was because they had to push the episode's runtime past 10 minutes somehow, and fell back on their old tactics from Volume 5. Just go slow and draw everything out. I really like this table flip. The camera shake and deep sound sells the power and anger really well. I also really like how Salem pays no mind that she just hit Tyrion with a table, and how Watts jumps out of his seat. Fun stuff. That being said, why isn't it fair for Hazel to take responsibility for their failure? He was the strongest combatant on the villain side and the oldest member present of the Council of Evil. This all just seems like an unnecessary amount of build-up to Salem mentioning that Cinder's still alive. Looks like Tyrion's characterization's not the only one that's become a shame. Remember when Salem was pleasant and motherly? That was cool and actually kind of intimidating. This caring woman who's also monstrous looking and leading a council of evil. But now she's just angry pants general, force choking people and throwing out threats. By all means, no one outside of Tyrion looks happy to be there. Previously, it was easy to see how the council could be interested in joining Salem. Now I find it hard to believe any of them actually want to be there. Good job, guys. You made your villain less interesting and likable in a poor attempt to make her seem threatening. Why have Emerald say whose fault it is? Why not Mercury? Is it because the directors wanted to spend all the Council of Evil screen time towards hinting at Emerald wanting to leave the dark side? Yes. That and Mercury's not a character, so why include him anyway?
Cinder!
No. Literally nothing's happened to make any of these people think Cinder's to blame for their defeat. No one saw Cinder try to take the maiden power in the vault, and outside of that, she just followed the plan of go get the relic. By all accounts, Emerald should have said, that blonde girl. For all they could tell, Cinder, Raven, Vernal, and later Yang went down the elevator, and Yang was the only one to come out, relic in hand. By all means, they should be blaming their loss on the one who seemingly defeated a team of superwomen and nabbed the MacGuffin they were all there to get. But why would they ever want the villains to have a reason to go after the heroes other than Ruby's eye color? Better just have the baddies squabble with themselves for the whole fucking show.
You're joking. How could you know that?
Are you questioning our divine savior?
No, but for real, how does she know? Having Tyrion be scary as a way to just look past the question Watts proposed is dumb. It's not hard to bullshit a reason for her. My seer told me, I can sense her aura. Anything would have been better than this. If you're so reluctant to come up with a reason Salem knows she's alive, just don't have Watts ask about it.
This isn't a threat. This is simply the truth.
And thus Salem uttered the most annoying edgelord trailer bait seen in RWBY so far.
This isn't a threat. This is simply the truth.
It's like all of Salem's lines were written by an angsty middle schooler this episode.
Crow and the children are taking the lamp to Atlas.
The council knowing the kids are heading to Atlas makes no impact on this volume. They do nothing with this information. Why even bring it up? Why is Salem so upset to learn Ozpin's reincarnated? She knows he does that. She's talked about Ozpin before without issue. Why is she getting so worked up now? Is it because it's happened quicker than expected? Why does the speed of Oz's reincarnation upset her this much? Gotta take a moment to see how this affects only Emerald. No one else here is important at all because they're not good fan service. Okay, they could have done the screaming thing way better. Instead of closing the door, taking a breath, and then screaming, the door closing should have interrupted the scream, so then Emerald sees Salem start to freak out, but then is cut off from it. The squeaky gate and lack of music does a good job making the farm feel unsettling. Isn't this amazing, RWBY? We found a 2D sign pasted over the fence! To be fair, this is one of their better hidden flat inserts of the volume, but once you notice it, it's just impossible to ignore. And so that's how it is. I mentioned that a friend of mine who only watches RWBY casually had been so impressed with the previous episode that she tried out RT's first membership to watch the next episode early. Well, I feel bad for her because that meant she got an early viewing of one of the worst episodes of the volume. No one is likable during the episode. The heroes attack Ozpin for having a difficult ex, and the villains are either shittily squabbling or throwing tantrums like children. The stuff with the kids is annoying to sit through with their sudden hatred of a man who's just as much a victim in all this as them, even more so. And the fact that they all seem to hive mind hate him now because that's what the script told them to do is just a cherry on top. We aren't given a reason why these girls are all so upset about this now. It's like the writers gave Crow a reason to be grumpy and just assumed that worked for everyone. But even that slog of a scene isn't as bad as the shit with the villains. All the baddies are trying to sound so edgy, I'm surprised we don't see Tyrion rubbing his face against the script. And even worse, the scenes with the villains are completely useless. The bulk of the episode is an unnecessary chunk of boring dialogue and try-hard visuals. The Council of Evil are totally inactive in the plot for this volume, making the scene a complete waste of time. This episode is so not fun to watch and does effectively nothing towards the overall story that it's completely skippable, and that's just how it is.
You ever want to talk about your emotions, Tian?
No.
I do. I know, David.
I'm sad.
I know, David.
So then Emerald, the oldest member present of the Council of Evil. This all just seems seems like an unnecessary amount of build-up to I've got like a frog in my throat.